The alarm bells rang through the massive council chamber like thunder. Admiral Sarah Chen sat at the human table, watching as hundreds of alien representatives filled the enormous room. The Galactic Federation Council hadn't called an emergency meeting in over 200 years. The holographic display in the center showed something that made Chen's blood run cold. Star systems were going dark one after another along the galaxy's outer edge, not destroyed by war or natural disaster, but simply vanishing from all sensors. "The Void Swarm has returned," announced Counselor HFY, his crystal body glowing with fear. The ancient Zephyrian had lived for 3,000 years, and Chen had never seen him afraid before. Murmurs filled the chamber as the display showed grainy footage from the last transmission of Kepler Station. Dark shapes moved between the stars like living shadows. Ships that seemed to be made of writhing flesh consumed everything in their path. They ate metal, energy, even the light from nearby stars. "How many systems have we lost?" asked the Nephilim representative, her gaseous form shifting colors with emotion. 47 in the past month," replied the synthesis, speaking through its mechanical avatar. "The rate is increasing. Our projections show the swarm will reach core Federation worlds within 2 years. Chen stood up, her voice carrying across the chamber. "We need to mobilize the fleet immediately. Every available ship should move to defend the outer colonies." The chamber fell silent. Then, laughter began. Not cruel laughter, but the kind adults give to children who don't understand the real world. "Admiral Chen," Counselor HFY said gently, "humans have been Federation members for only 30 years. You don't understand the Void Swarm. They consumed entire galaxies before your species learned to make fire. We cannot fight them. So, we just let them eat everything." Chen's hands clenched into fists. "There are billions of people in those outer systems." "Acceptable losses," said the Nephilim coldly. "The Federation will survive by withdrawing to the galactic core. We will build better defenses there." "You're talking about abandoning half the galaxy," the synthesis spoke, its voice without emotion. "Human aggression is well documented. You think every problem can be solved with violence. The Void Swarm has existed for millions of years. If they could be defeated by simple force, it would have happened already." Chen looked around the chamber. Every alien face showed the same expression: pity for the young, foolish humans who didn't know better. These ancient races had seen empires rise and fall. They survived by being careful, by avoiding risks. But they also survived by letting others die. "The decision is final," Counselor HFY announced. "All Federation forces will withdraw to the inner systems. The outer rim will be, regrettably, abandoned." Chen left the chamber without another word. Her hands shook as she activated her communication device. "This is Admiral Chen. Connect me to Earth Command, Priority Alpha." The holographic image of General Rodriguez appeared before her. His scarred face looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. "Sarah, I watched the council feed. I know what you're going to ask. We can't let this happen, General. We can't just abandon those people." "The President agrees. Project Retribution is approved. Captain Webb will take command within the hour." Chen felt her heart skip. Project Retribution was humanity's deepest secret. For 20 years, they had been building something the other species didn't know about. A ship that combined human engineering with stolen alien technology. A weapon designed not for exploration or trade, but for war. The UES Retribution was humanity's answer to a galaxy that saw them as children. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of his new command, feeling the massive ship hum with power beneath his feet. The Retribution was 3 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that Earth's best scientists had designed in secret. Railguns that could punch through a moon. Missile systems that fired nuclear warheads at near-light speed. Energy shields, stolen from Zephyrian technology and improved by human stubbornness. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving surrender requests from Federation Command. They want us to stand down and retreat to Earth." Webb looked at the tactical display showing the advancing Void Swarm. 47 systems were already gone. More would follow. "Tell them we're experiencing communication difficulties. All further messages will be delayed for technical reasons." His crew smiled. They knew what that meant. XO, what's our status? Commander Lisa Park, Webb's second. In command, checked her displays. All systems green, sir. We have a full crew of 8,000. Marines are loaded and ready. We've got enough supplies for 6 months of independent operation. Webb nodded. The Retribution carried the best of humanity's military. Veterans from the corporate wars, soldiers who had learned to fight in the asteroid belts and on airless moons. Men and women who understood that sometimes the only way to protect something was to destroy everything that threatened it. Dr. Vasquez, what do we know about the swarm? The chief science officer pulled up holographic data. They're unlike anything we've seen before, part machine, part biological. They seem to be controlled by some kind of hive mind. They consume matter and energy to grow stronger, and they can adapt to most conventional weapons within hours. Weaknesses? Unknown. The Federation has never fought them before. Their strategy has always been to run and hide. Webb looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, people were dying while politicians debated, and ancient aliens retreated to safety. Well, Doctor, I guess we're about to learn something new. The ship's AI, a human creation called Athena, spoke through the bridge speakers. Captain, I'm receiving distress signals from the outer rim. Colony ships, research stations, mining platforms, they're all calling for help. How long to reach the crisis zone? At maximum jump speed, 18 hours. Webb sat in his command chair and looked at his crew. These were his people. Human faces, human courage, human determination. They were about to face something that had destroyed entire civilizations. Helm, set course for the outer rim. Maximum speed. Sir, Commander Park said quietly, if we do this, there's no going back. Earth won't be able to protect us from Federation justice. Webb thought about the families in those outer colonies, parents trying to protect their children, workers who had built new worlds with their own hands, explorers who had pushed the boundaries of known space. Commander, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the Retribution is going hunting. As the massive warship jumped to hyperspace, its engines created ripples that every sensor in the galaxy could detect. The Zephyrians registered at first, their crystal minds buzzing with confusion. The humans were supposed to retreat. They were supposed to hide behind their betters and let the adults handle the crisis. Instead, they had sent their biggest, most dangerous ship directly toward the enemy. In the depths of space, something noticed. The Void Swarm's scouts felt the approach of something new, something that didn't run, something that moved toward them instead of away. For the first time in a million years, the swarm encountered prey that hunted back. Webb stood on his bridge, watching the stars streak past. His ship carried Earth's hopes and humanity's defiance. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and abandoned by their allies, but they were human, and humans had never learned when to give up. The Retribution dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and Captain Webb immediately knew they were too late. Where Kepler's station should have been, there was only empty space and scattered debris. Captain, his tactical officer, reported, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. Whatever happened here was recent. Webb studied the tactical display. 3 planets in the system showed no life signs. Their surfaces had been stripped bare, leaving only dead rock behind. Athena, scan for survivors. Scanning, Captain. I detect 17 ships at the edge of the system. Life signs are weak but present. They appear to be refugee vessels. Helm, take us to them. Slowly. Keep weapons ready. As they approached, Webb saw the refugee fleet clearly. Ships from a dozen different species, all damaged and running on emergency power. Some were barely holding together. In the middle of them was a massive passenger liner, its hull scarred by strange burn marks. Captain, the communications officer, said, We're being hailed by the liner. It's the Serenity, a civilian transport. Put them through. The main screen filled with the face of a Karathi captain, his blue skin pale with exhaustion. Behind him, Webb could see crowds of refugees from multiple species. Human ship, the alien captain said. I am Captain Veltar of the Serenity. We have over 10,000 refugees aboard. Medical supplies are running low and our engines are failing. Captain Veltar, this is Captain Webb of the UES Retribution. We're here to help. Can you tell us what happened? The aliens' large eyes filled with tears. They came out of nowhere. Ships that looked like they were alive. They ate everything. The stations, the orbital platforms, even the asteroid mining facilities. Nothing could stop them. Where did they go? Toward the Centauri cluster. There are colonies there, research stations, millions of people. Veltar's voice broke. You have to warn them. Webb looked at his XO. Commander Park understood his expression. They could escort the refugees to safety, but that would take days. By then, the Centauri cluster would be gone. Dr. Vasquez, Webb called. I need everything we know about these void swarm ships. The science officer pulled up the sensor data from Kepler Station's final moments. The ships appear to be biomechanical hybrids. They consume matter and convert it into energy and new biomass. What's interesting is their movement patterns. They follow very predictable paths, almost like they're following programmed instructions. Hive mind, Webb muttered. They're not thinking for themselves? Exactly, which means they might not adapt well to unexpected tactics. Webb made his decision. Commander Park, take a team and transfer medical supplies to the refugees. Give them enough to reach the inner systems. Dr. Vasquez, I want you to analyze every piece of data we have on the swarm. Look for weaknesses, patterns, anything we can use. Sir, Commander Park said, what about the Centauri cluster? We're going hunting. The transfer took 3 hours. Webb watched as his crew worked alongside alien refugees, human medics treating wounded Karathi children while his engineers helped repair damaged life support systems. Despite everything, people were still helping people. Captain Veltar came aboard the Retribution to thank Webb personally. Why are you doing this? The alien asked. Your Federation allies have abandoned this sector. Because it's the right thing to do, Webb replied, and because we're human. Veltar studied him with large, intelligent eyes. I have heard stories about your species. They say you are violent, aggressive, difficult to control. Sometimes, Webb admitted, but we're also stubborn. We don't like bullies. As the refugee fleet jumped to hyperspace heading for safety, Webb turned his attention to the hunt. The swarm had a 6-hour head start, but they were consuming everything in their path, which slowed them down. Athena, plot their most likely course. Based on stellar density and population centers, they will most likely attack the research station at Proxima 7 first, then move to the main colonies. How long do we have? At current speeds, they will reach Proxima 7 in 4 hours. Webb looked at his crew. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to engage an enemy that has never been defeated. They have destroyed entire civilizations, but they have never faced humans before. They don't know that we're too stupid to know when we're beaten. Laughter echoed through the bridge. His crew understood. The Retribution jumped to hyperspace, racing to intercept the void swarm before they could reach their next target. They dropped into normal space just as the swarm scouts reached the outer edge of the Proxima system. Webb got his first clear look at the enemy and his blood ran cold. The ships were like nothing in any database. They looked alive, with hulls that pulsed like skin and weapons that resembled claws or tentacles. Some were small, no bigger than fighters. Others were massive, the size of cruisers, with surfaces that seemed to shift and change as he watched. Tactical, count them. 43 ships, sir, various sizes. The largest is approximately 2 kilometers long. Webb smiled grimly. Only 43. Athena, send a message to Proxima Station. Tell them to evacuate immediately. All hands, battle stations. The Retribution's massive guns turned toward the enemy. Weapon systems that had never been tested in real combat powered up with a whine that every human on board felt in their bones. Captain, his tactical officer said, the swarm ships are accelerating. They've detected us. Let them come. All batteries. Target the largest ship. Fire when ready. The Retribution's railguns fired first, sending projectiles at 15% of light speed toward the lead swarm vessel. The shots hit dead center, punching through the biomechanical hull like it was paper. But instead of exploding, the ship seemed to absorb the damage. Its hull rippled and sealed itself. Direct hit, no effect, Tactical reported. The ship is regenerating. Switch to nuclear missiles. Full spread. 6 fusion warheads streaked toward the swarm fleet. This time, the explosions tore 3 of the smaller ships apart. But the larger vessels began to change, their hulls becoming thicker and more reflective. They're adapting, Dr. Vasquez said, her voice tight with fear. They're modifying their defenses in real time. The swarm ships opened fire, streams of energy that looked like liquid darkness. The Retribution's shields flared as they absorbed the impact. Webb thought fast. Traditional tactics weren't working. The enemy adapted too quickly to conventional weapons. But what if they couldn't predict what humans would do? Helm, ramming speed, target the largest ship. Sir? His helmsman asked. Sure he had heard wrong. You heard me. Ramming speed, all power to forward shields. The Retribution accelerated directly toward the enemy flagship. The swarm ships seemed confused by this tactic. Their formations wavered as they tried to understand why prey would charge directly at predators. At the last moment, Webb ordered, "Emergency stop. All guns, point-blank range." The massive Dreadnought stopped just meters from the swarm ship's hull. Every weapon on the forward arc fired at once, at ranges so close that even adaptive defenses couldn't compensate. The enemy flagship exploded in a burst of biomechanical fragments. Hard to port, target the next ship. For the next hour, the Retribution fought like no ship in galactic history. Instead of maintaining safe distances and using established tactics, Webb had his ship dance among the enemy, using its superior engines to get close and hit hard before moving to the next target. The swarm ships couldn't adapt because there was no pattern to adapt to. Human tactics were based on controlled chaos, on making decisions that even other humans couldn't predict. When the battle ended, 37 swarm ships were destroyed. The remaining 6 had retreated into hyperspace. Damage report, Webb called. Hull. Breaches on deck 7 through 12, Commander Park reported. No casualties, but we'll need repairs before the next engagement. Webb looked at the tactical display. They had won, but it was just a scout force. The main swarm fleet was still out there, and it would be much larger. Athena, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we engaged the enemy and achieved victory. Include all tactical data. Message sent, Captain. Webb didn't know that his message would reach more than just Earth Command. The quantum communication network carried news of the battle to every Federation world. For the first time in galactic history, someone had fought the Void Swarm and won. On distant planets, alien leaders who had been planning evacuations stopped to watch the battle recordings. The human ship moved like nothing they had ever seen, attacking with a combination of savage aggression and brilliant tactics. In the crystalline halls of the Zephyrian Council, ancient minds that had seen the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations asked themselves a new question. What if the young humans were right? The echo of the Retribution's guns was beginning to spread across the galaxy. 2 weeks after the battle at Proxima, Captain Webb stood on his repaired bridge and watched something he had never expected to see. Alien warships were joining his fleet. Captain, Commander Park reported, we now have 17 ships under our command. 3 Karathi destroyers, 4 Altarian cruisers, 5 Tau Ceti frigates, 2 Vegan science vessels, and 3 ships from species I don't even recognize. Webb studied the tactical display. Each ship was different, built by cultures with their own ideas about warfare and engineering. But they all had one thing in common. Their crews had volunteered to follow a human captain into battle against impossible odds. Athena, why are they here? The AI's voice carried something that almost sounded like pride. They have been monitoring our communications, Captain. News of our victory has spread through the Outer Rim colonies. These ships represent governments and military units who refuse to abandon their territories. Or, Dr. Vasquez added from her station, they're young enough to still believe in fighting back. The main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. A Karathi admiral appeared, her blue skin marked with the ritual scars of a warrior caste. Captain Webb, she said, I am Admiral Kethara of the Karathi Defense Force. My government has authorized me to place my ships under your command. Admiral, I appreciate the support, but you should know that Earth Command has disavowed this mission. If you follow me, your government can't protect you from Federation justice. The alien admiral smiled, showing sharp teeth. Captain, my people have a saying. Honor is not given by those who run away. We will fight beside humans. Similar messages came from the other ship commanders. Young officers from species who had been told they were too inexperienced to understand galactic politics. Veterans who remembered what it meant to protect their homes. Rebels who refused to accept that some battles couldn't be won. Webb felt the weight of command like never before. These aliens were trusting him with their lives, their careers, their honor. He couldn't let them down. All ships, this is Admiral Webb, he said, using his new rank for the first time. Form up on the Retribution. We have colonies to save. The mixed fleet moved deeper into swarm territory, following the trail of consumed systems. At each stop, they found the same thing. Worlds stripped bare, populations vanished, silence where there should have been life. But they also found survivors. Hidden bases, camouflaged ships, research stations that had managed to hide from the swarm's sensors. Each rescue operation brought more volunteers, more ships, more determination to fight. The fleet grew to 30 ships, then 50, then nearly 100. Veterans and rookies, merchants and soldiers, scientists and warriors all united behind the human Dreadnought. Dr. Vasquez worked around the clock to understand the enemy. The swarm ships are controlled by a collective intelligence, she reported during a fleet conference. But the larger the fleet, the more complex their coordination becomes. If we can disrupt their command structure, how do we do that? Asked Admiral Cathara. Unknown. But I'm detecting some kind of command ship in their main fleet. Something much larger than anything we've seen before. Webb studied the long-range sensor data. The main swarm fleet was massive. Over 300 ships of various sizes, plus something huge at the center that their sensors couldn't fully identify. We need better intelligence, Webb decided. I'm authorizing a deep reconnaissance mission. Sir, Commander Park said, that's suicide. We'd have to get within their sensor range. Not if we're smart about it. Webb turned to his tactical officer. What's the closest swarm position to our current location? A supply convoy, about 6 hours away. 12 ships total moving toward the Vega system. Perfect. We'll hit them fast and hard, capture one of their vessels, and get out before reinforcements arrive. The attack went flawlessly. The human-led fleet dropped out of hyperspace, around the swarm convoy like a pack of wolves. Using the unpredictable tactics that had worked before, they destroyed 11 ships and captured the 12th within 30 minutes. But as they prepared to jump away, Athena detected something troubling. Captain, I'm reading massive hyperspace signatures. Multiple fleets are converging on our position. How many? At least 200 ships, sir. ETA 15 minutes. Webb's blood ran cold. The swarm had laid a trap, using their supply convoy as bait. His fleet was about to be surrounded by overwhelming numbers. All ships. Emergency jump to rally point 7. Now. Most of the fleet escaped. But 6 ships didn't make it out in time. Webb watched helplessly as brave crews who had trusted his leadership were consumed by the enemy. At the emergency rally point, Webb faced the hardest moment of his command. The survivors looked to him for answers he didn't have. How could they fight an enemy that could think and plan as well as they could? Captain, Dr. Vasquez said quietly. I've been analyzing the captured swarm ship. I think I know how they found us. She showed him the biomechanical technology they had recovered. The swarm isn't just a hive mind. They're learning from us. Every battle, every tactic we use, they study and adapt. They're becoming more human-like in their thinking. Admiral Cathara growled low in her throat. If they think like us, how do we surprise them? Webb stared at the alien technology, and suddenly an idea began to form. A crazy, dangerous idea that might just work. Dr. Vasquez, can you interface our computers with their biotech? Theoretically, yes, but it would be extremely dangerous. If they could access our systems, what if we let them? The room fell silent. Every officer stared at Webb like he had lost his mind. "Hear me out," he continued. "They're adapting to our tactics because they're studying us from the outside. But what if we fed them false information? What if we made them think they understood us, when really we were setting them up?" It took 3 days to prepare the trap. Dr. Vasquez worked with the captured swarm technology, carefully preparing false tactical data that would make the enemy think they had cracked human military codes. Meanwhile, Webb planned the most audacious battle in galactic history. The target was a major swarm staging area in the Centauri system. Intelligence suggested over 100 ships were gathered there, preparing for an assault on the inner colonies. It was heavily defended and strategically vital. It was also exactly where Webb wanted the enemy to expect him. "All ships," he broadcast to his fleet, "we're going to attack Centauri head-on. Full frontal assault, maximum aggression. The swarm will think they know exactly what we're going to do, and they would be right. Until the last moment." The combined fleet jumped into the Centauri system in perfect formation, weapons blazing, heading straight for the swarm staging area. The enemy responded exactly as Webb had hoped. They moved to surround his fleet, confident that they understood human tactics. That's when Webb revealed his real plan. "All ships emergency scatter, execute plan chaos." Instead of fighting as a united fleet, every ship suddenly began acting independently. No coordination, no formation, no predictable patterns. Each captain was free to fight however they wanted, using their own species' natural instincts and cultural methods. The result was beautiful chaos. Karathi ships dove at the enemy with berserker fury. Altarian vessels used complex mathematical formations that confused swarm targeting systems. Human ships fought with their usual controlled aggression. Tau Ceti frigates employed hit-and-run, tactics that had been developed over centuries of border warfare. The swarm couldn't adapt because there was nothing consistent to adapt to. Their hive mind, so efficient at coordinating their own forces, couldn't process the complete tactical anarchy of Webb's fleet. When the battle ended, 67 swarm ships had been destroyed for the loss of only 8 Allied vessels. It was the most decisive victory in the war so far. But as Webb surveyed the battlefield, Athena detected something that made his heart sink. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up massive movement throughout swarm territory. They're consolidating their entire fleet. Where? Unknown. But energy signatures suggest they're gathering everything they have. Every ship, every resource, everything." Webb realized what was happening. The swarm had learned something from their defeats. They were abandoning their usual tactics of gradual consumption and preparing for one massive final assault. The question was, where would they strike? The answer came 12 hours later in the form of a priority message from Earth. "Captain Webb," Admiral Chen's image said, "Federation intelligence reports that the swarm is moving toward the galactic core. They're targeting the Federation capital itself. Every major species homeworld is in danger." Webb looked at his mixed fleet, brave aliens who had followed him against impossible odds, humans who had refused to abandon their duty, ships and crews who had become a symbol of resistance across the galaxy. They had won every battle. But now they faced a war for the survival of galactic civilization itself, and they were still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The Federation Council chamber had never been so quiet. For the first time in 3,000 years, the ancient halls were filled with fear instead of dignified debate. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the same council that had dismissed her months earlier, but now the alien representatives hung on her every word. "The swarm's main fleet numbers over 2,000 ships," she reported. "They're 3 days out from the galactic core. Your evacuation plans won't save you. They're moving too fast." Counselor Zeph High's crystal body flickered with desperate light. "Surely there must be something we can do. Our combined fleets—" "Your combined fleets total 800 ships," Chen interrupted. "Most of them designed for exploration and trade, not warfare. Against the swarm, they'll last maybe an hour." The Nephilim representative's gaseous form swirled with agitation. "Then we are lost. The swarm cannot be defeated." "Actually," Chen said, "they can. Captain Webb has proven that. but it requires tactics and strategies that you've spent 3,000 years calling primitive and barbaric. The synthesis avatar spoke with its emotionless mechanical voice. Explain. Chen activated a holographic display showing the battles Webb had won. Human military doctrine is based on organized chaos. We don't fight the way you expect civilized species to fight. We adapt, we improvise, we take risks that your careful, logical minds consider insane. You want us to fight like humans? Counselor Zephi asked, as if the word tasted strange. No. I want you to let humans lead the defense. Give Captain Webb full military authority and access to your best technology. Let him coordinate a defense using tactics the swarm can't predict or counter. The chamber erupted in debate. Ancient species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, being asked to follow the leadership of beings they had considered children just months earlier. But they were also facing extinction. The vote was close, but desperation won. By a margin of 3 votes, the Federation Council granted unprecedented emergency powers to a human captain whose own government had disavowed his actions. Captain Webb received the news while his fleet was racing toward the Federation capital. He now commanded not just his 100 volunteer ships, but the entire defensive force of the Galactic Core. Athena, he said, what are our total resources? 837 ships from 17 different species, Captain, plus orbital defense platforms around 12 core worlds and manufacturing facilities that can produce weapons and supplies. Webb studied the tactical situation. The swarm was approaching through the Sagittarius arm, consuming everything in their path to fuel their final assault. They would hit the outer core worlds first, then push toward the Federation capital. Commander Park, I need you to coordinate with the alien fleet commanders. We're going to fight this battle in 3 phases. The first phase began when the swarm reached the outer defense line. Instead of meeting them with traditional fleet formations, Webb scattered his forces across dozens of systems. The enemy found themselves fighting dozens of separate battles instead of one decisive engagement. Each battle group fought differently. Human ships used their chaotic tactics. Karathi vessels employed berserker charges. Altarian cruisers fought in mathematical formations that made their movements unpredictable. The synthesis ships used pure logic to counter swarm adaptations, while Zephyrian vessels fought with crystalline precision. The result was tactical anarchy on a galactic scale. The swarm's hive mind, designed to coordinate perfect strategies, couldn't process the sheer variety of opposing tactics, but it was still a delaying action. Despite heavy losses, the swarm pushed through the outer defenses and continued toward the core worlds. Phase 2 began when Webb did something no military commander in galactic history had ever attempted. He evacuated the populations of 3 entire star systems, then used the planets themselves as weapons. Athena, are the gravitational charges ready? Affirmative, Captain. All 3 systems have been prepared according to your specifications. When the swarm fleet entered the Vega system, expecting to find billions of people to consume, they found empty worlds instead. But as they began to investigate, massive gravitational charges detonated in the system's star. The star went nova, 12 hours early. The explosion consumed over 300 swarm ships and cleared a massive gap in their formation. Similar traps in the Altair and Procyon systems destroyed hundreds more. But the core of the swarm fleet survived, including something Webb's sensors had never seen before. A ship so massive it was the size of a small moon, with energy readings that defied understanding. Dr. Vasquez, what is that thing? The science officer's face was pale as she studied the sensor data. I think it's the Swarm Queen, Captain, the central intelligence that coordinates their entire species. If we could destroy it, the whole swarm would collapse, Webb finished. But how do we get close enough? That thing is protected by over 1,000 ships. The answer came from an unexpected source. The synthesis avatar appeared on his screen, its mechanical face showing something that might have been respect. Captain Webb, the Synthesis Collective has reached a decision. We offer you our most advanced technology, quantum torpedoes that can phase through normal matter, but they must be delivered at point-blank range. Webb understood immediately. It was a suicide mission. One ship would have to penetrate the swarm's defenses, get close enough to the Queen ship to use the quantum weapons, and ensure they hit their target. Only one ship in the fleet was powerful enough and fast enough to have even a chance of success. The Retribution. "How long to retrofit the weapons?" Webb asked. 16 hours, Captain, but I must warn you, the quantum torpedoes will destabilize your ship's power core. You will have perhaps minutes before total system failure." Webb looked around his bridge. At Commander Park, who had followed him through every impossible battle. At Dr. Vasquez, whose scientific brilliance had helped them understand the enemy. At his crew, who had become the finest warriors in the galaxy. Athena, send a message to all fleet commanders. They're to continue harassing attacks on the swarm fleet, but under no circumstances are they to engage the Queen ship. That's our job. Captain, Commander Park said quietly, there has to be another way. There is no other way, Lisa. We always knew it might come to this. As the Retribution underwent its final modifications, Webb walked through his ship one last time. In the Marine barracks, he found soldiers cleaning weapons they might never fire again. In engineering, he saw technicians making final adjustments to systems they knew would soon fail. In the observation deck, he found Dr. Vasquez staring out at the stars. "Any regrets, Elena?" She turned to him with a smile. "About following a crazy, human captain on a suicide mission against impossible odds? Not one." Webb stood beside her, watching their escort fleet take formation around the Retribution. Ships from a dozen species all united behind humanity's flag. "You know what I find funny?" he said. 6 months ago, they thought we were too primitive to understand real warfare. Now they're following us into the biggest battle in galactic history. "Maybe being primitive isn't such a bad thing," she replied. "Maybe sometimes you need someone who doesn't know better than to fight back." The final battle began 18 hours later, as the swarm fleet entered the Sol system itself. Earth's orbital defenses opened fire, joined by every ship in the human home fleet. But they were vastly outnumbered. Webb watched from the Retribution's bridge as humanity's birth world came under attack. The planet where his species had first looked up at the stars and decided they wanted to visit them. "All ships," he broadcast on an open channel. "This is Admiral Webb. Today we fight not just for our species, but for the right of all life to exist in this galaxy. Today we prove that courage matters more than numbers, that determination is stronger than despair." The massive Dreadnought accelerated toward the heart of the enemy fleet, toward the Queen ship that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. Around them, the greatest space battle in galactic history raged across the entire solar system. But Webb's attention was focused on one target. The creature that had consumed entire civilizations was about to learn what happened when it threatened humanity's home. The Retribution's engines burned at maximum power, carrying them toward their destiny. Behind them, the combined fleets of the galaxy fought with everything they had. Ahead of them, the Void Swarm Queen waited, protected by 1,000 ships and the accumulated malice of 1,000,000 conquered worlds. Webb smiled grimly and gave the order that would echo through galactic history. "All hands, prepare for final assault. This is what we came here to do." The Retribution punched through the outer ring of swarm defenders like a spear through paper. Webb had pushed his ship beyond every safety limit, channeling all power to engines and shields while his weapons carved a bloody path toward the Queen ship. "Hull integrity down to 60%, Commander Park reported, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We're losing atmosphere on decks 12 through 15. "Seal those sections," Webb ordered, never taking his eyes off the massive shape ahead of them. The Swarm Queen was like nothing he had ever seen. A writhing mass of biomechanical horror the size of a city, surrounded by a shell of living metal that pulsed with dark energy. Behind them, the greatest space battle in galactic history raged across the Sol system. Human ships fought beside Karathi warriors, Altarian cruisers coordinated with Zephyrian crystal ships, and the synthesis used pure logic to predict enemy movements, while Tau Ceti frigates struck from unexpected angles. But Webb's focus was entirely on his mission. Get close enough to the Queen to use the quantum torpedoes. Everything else was secondary. "Athena, status of the quantum weapons? Charging sequence at 90%, Captain. Estimated time to full readiness, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. They had to survive 3 more minutes against impossible odds. Swarm ships converged on the Retribution from all sides, their biomechanical hulls writhing with hunger. These weren't the mindless drones they had fought before. The Queen was directing, them personally, coordinating attacks with intelligence that matched any military genius in galactic history. Incoming fire from port and starboard, the tactical officer called. They're trying to box us in. Webb smiled grimly. Then let's not be where they expect us to be. Helm, emergency dive, take us under their formation. The massive Dreadnought suddenly changed course, diving down relative to the galactic plane. The swarm ships, expecting continued forward momentum, fired at empty space while the Retribution slipped beneath them. Now hard to starboard. All guns fire at will. The ship's massive weapons blazed as they raked the underside of the enemy formation. 3 swarm vessels exploded in brilliant flashes, but more took their place immediately. 1 minute to quantum. Torpedo readiness, Athena announced. Webb could see the Queen ship clearly now. Its surface was covered with thousands of smaller organisms, like antibodies protecting a massive infection. Energy coursed along biomechanical conduits that looked like veins made of liquid starlight. Captain, Dr. Vasquez called from her station. I'm detecting massive energy buildup in the Queen ship. I think it's preparing some kind of weapon. Before Webb could respond, space around them lit up with coherent energy. The Queen ship's main weapon fired, a beam of pure destruction that could have cracked a moon in half. It missed the Retribution by less than a kilometer. Evasive maneuvers, Webb ordered. Don't let that thing get a clear shot. The ship twisted and turned like a fighter instead of a massive dreadnought, using its superior human-designed engines to stay one step ahead of the Queen's targeting systems. But they were taking damage. Hull breaches on multiple decks, weapon systems failing, shields down to 30%. Quantum torpedoes ready, Captain, Athena announced. Webb looked at his crew one last time. These brave men and women who had followed him across the galaxy, who had fought battles that would become legend, who had chosen duty over safety every single time. It's been an honor serving with all of you, he said quietly. Then louder, all hands prepare for ramming speed. Target the Queen ship's central core. Sir, Commander Park said, understanding what he was planning. The quantum torpedoes have a maximum range of 50 meters. At that distance, when they detonate? I know, Webb replied. Athena, give me ship-wide communications. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Webb to all ships in the fleet. The Retribution is beginning its final approach. Whatever happens. Next, remember that we didn't do this for glory or recognition. We did it because sometimes someone has to stand up to the darkness. Humanity out. The Retribution accelerated directly toward the Queen ship's core, every remaining weapon firing. Continuously, the massive dreadnought had become a spear of light and fury, carrying the hopes of a galaxy toward the heart of evil. Swarm defenders threw themselves at the human ship, but nothing could stop its momentum. Webb had committed everything, power, weapons, his crew's lives, his own future, to this single moment. 50 meters in closing, Athena announced. Webb could see into the Queen ship's core now, a pulsing mass of biomechanical intelligence that had coordinated the destruction of entire civilizations. He could feel its malevolent awareness focusing on his ship, understanding at last what the humans intended to do. Fire quantum torpedoes. The weapons launched, phasing through normal matter to strike directly at the Queen's central nervous system. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the massive creature screamed. The sound was transmitted through hyperspace, a psychic wail of agony and rage that every sapient being in the system could feel in their bones. The Queen ship convulsed, its biomechanical systems failing as the quantum weapons tore apart its neural network. But the torpedoes had destabilized the Retribution's power core. Alarms screamed throughout the ship as containment fields began to fail. All hands abandon ship, Webb ordered. Emergency evacuation, now. Captain, Commander Park said. The escape pods can't clear the blast radius in time. Webb looked at the tactical display. She was right. The power core explosion would consume everything within 1,000 kilometers. His crew, the bravest people he had ever known, would die with their ship. Unless... Athena, can you maintain engine power for 30 more seconds? Affirmative, Captain, but the explosion will be catastrophic. That's what I'm counting on. Helm, take us into the Queen ship's core, ramming speed. The dying Retribution smashed through the Queen ship's defenses and plunged deep into its biomechanical heart. Around them, the creature's death throes tore apart its own internal structures. Webb sat in his command chair, watching the countdown timer tick toward 0. 20 seconds. 15. 10. He thought about Earth, about the children who would grow up free because of what they had done here. He thought about the alien crews who had trusted him, about the species who would now have a future. 5 seconds. Athena, record final message. Tell them we were proud to serve. 3 seconds. Message recorded, Captain. 1 second. The Retributions. Power core exploded with the force of a small star, vaporizing both ships in a blast of pure energy that could be seen from the edge of the solar system. But the Queen ship's death scream had done more than announce its destruction. Throughout the Sol system, every swarm vessel suddenly stopped fighting. Their coordinated attacks became random, desperate movements. Without their central intelligence, the hive mind collapsed. Admiral Keth Ara, commanding the Karathi contingent, was the first to understand what had happened. All ships the Swarm Queen is destroyed, press the attack. The tide of battle turned in minutes. Swarm ships that had been deadly coordinated killers became confused animals, easy prey for the combined fleets. By the end of the day, the invasion force had been completely destroyed. But the victory came at a terrible cost. The finest ship and crew in human history were gone, along with the man who had taught the galaxy how to fight back. 3 days later, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the Federation Council one last time. But now, instead of dismissing human concerns, the alien representatives hung on her every word. The swarm threat has been eliminated, she reported. Their remaining forces throughout the galaxy are collapsing without central coordination. The outer rim colonies can be resettled within a year. Counselor Zeph High's crystal form glowed with gratitude. Admiral Chen, the Federation owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. Captain Webb and his crew saved us all. They saved more than that, Chen replied. They proved that courage matters more than technology, that determination can overcome any odds, that sometimes the youngest voice in the room is the one everyone should listen to. The memorial service was held on Earth, broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of species came to honor the crew of the Retribution and the human captain who had shown them all how to be heroes. But the real memorial was what happened next. The Galactic Federation was reorganized, with humans holding senior leadership positions. Military academies across the galaxy began teaching Webb doctrine, the tactical principles that had defeated the swarm. Young officers from dozens of species competed for the honor of serving aboard human ships. And in the shipyards above Earth, construction began on a new vessel. The UES Echo would be twice the size of the Retribution, crewed by humans and aliens working together, equipped with the best technology the galaxy could provide. Captain Lisa Park, recently promoted and given command of the new ship, stood in her ready room looking at a holographic image of Marcus Webb. Her old captain smiled back at her with the confidence of a man who had never learned to give up. "Athena," she said to the ship's AI, "are you ready for our first mission?" "Always ready, Captain. The outer galaxy awaits exploration, and I believe Captain Webb would approve of our mission parameters." Park nodded. The Echo's mission was to explore beyond the galactic rim, to find new worlds and new species who might need protection.